What's up, everybody? How's it going today? So I've got my little journal here. It's my little book. I write down random thoughts and ideas in. It goes back through philosophy and astrotheology and all kinds of different interesting subjects that I've been into. It's about 15 years ago I got the book. So today I was considering religious people and the way that they approach others when they're trying to convey their message or to share what they have found. And so I came up with this kind of random quote or statement. It would be what a person might say if they were coming to someone else and trying to get them to take on their belief system. And it seems the reason why I did this is because there seems to be a pattern to this, and there's a lot of psychological observation in it. And so I'm just going to go ahead and read this, and then I'll finish up with my point. I used to be just like you until I found blank. Since blank came into my life, I've been much happier. My life had become unmanageable. I was confused about what to believe and resisted blank because I was angry and stubborn. But at a point, the suffering became too much, and in desperation, I asked blank for help. I was instantly washed over in contentment, and I know it was blank that helped me get better and to feel better. Now, all I want to do is share blank with the world, as I know that once everyone accepts blank into their lives, they will be as happy as I am. If you don't take blank into your heart, you will never be complete, because blank is the only path to truth. Now, you can replace blank with Jesus, you can replace it with Allah, you can replace it with, Krishna, you can replace it with many, even material, items, if you consider this, it could be a product, even, I used to be just like you until I found soap. Since soap came into my life, I've been much happier. But this is that's a silly example, I know, but it's a pattern that can be observed when people are trying to convince one another that their view is right. And I guess generally I've been able to just walk away from it when people have, very strong viewpoints that they don't want to consider others. Or if someone's trying to push something that's obviously something I've considered in the past. They kind of dress it up as if it's something new. I guess the other day I had someone, what got me thinking about this was a person who came and commented asking me if I'd ever considered converting to Islam. And basically asking me why not, kind of thing. And the person claimed that they had recently found it. They said they were led to it by their heart and mind. I said, that's great, but that's not my path. So I took a few notes here on things that religious folks tend to do when they're pushing their views on others, and the things that, the reasons why people are so opposed to these pushy folks. First off, we have the claim that others are blind for following nature, or the lower self, and following man's law. So, saying that a person who doesn't take, say, Jesus into their heart is merely stuck in this three-dimensional reality and obsessed with the earth and obsessed with these fleeting things that will be gone once we're gone anyway, which makes sense to me. Until you consider that all the Bibles were written by man, and all the people, all the books of the Bible were written by men, by people. And so no matter how much a person trusts Jesus, it's not a matter of trusting him. If you're reading the Bible, it's a matter of trusting the people who wrote the Bible. Because you may be able to take Jesus into your heart and feel like Jesus helps you. But as long as you're referring to how to live your life on a manual that was written by man, it's already setting itself up for failure. They will claim that there's no other way to heaven. There's no other way to heaven but their belief. Their feeling is somehow different than others. So even when you express that you've had these awakenings and feelings and that you have God in your heart, they'll tell you, no, you don't. Because this is the only path. Jesus is the only path. Or Allah is the only path. And to me that's a bit arrogant, because if a person's dedicated to one religion, It keeps them away from other discoveries and other religions. And how would you know if you can have the same experience in more than one way? This one, often religion is taken under stress, a low point in someone's life, and they attribute the coming back out of it to the belief, such as a person's in extreme pain or they're dying and they ask Jesus to come save them and they start to feel better. Now, when you're at a low point in your life already, the only place to go generally is up. So you can attribute it to anything you want, your lucky charm on your keychain, or you can attribute it to Jesus. But ultimately it comes down to that universal consciousness. And this is where it gets mixed up with people who are atheists, or people who are not non-believers are considered to be atheists, and they're considered to be godless people. And that's not the fact. That's not how it works. That's not how I am, anyway. I believe in something greater. It's just I choose not to label it, because by doing that, you're anthropomorphizing and sets itself up. This one has always got me. They claim to share their belief because their belief asks them to spread the word, which is fine with me, except they don't stop when they're asked to. If you want to spread the word and a person doesn't want to listen, you don't continue to push your word on them and tell them how wrong they are. They've heard what you had to say, and they tend to get confrontational and defensive, but they disguise it as if they're being caring, and they don't even realize they're doing it sometimes. And one thing that gets me is they're never willing to consider other people's views, although they will consider anyone who doesn't take their views to be closed-minded. And that's very common too. This one gets me. They claim to be just like you. I was just like you. And I always laugh at that, thinking, no, you weren't just like me. No one's just like me. I'm an individual. All of us are individuals under our own signs, under our own paths. And by saying they used to be just like you, what I found that means is that I used to ask questions, and I used to think about things a lot. I used to wonder why things happened, but I don't anymore, because I have these answers now in this book. And that's the way I take it, because I'm not out searching for a religion or a God. I'm just exploring. It's just like they say, astrology is the study of the body of the divine. Studying nature and the universe, studying nature and the world around you doesn't mean that you're separate from God. I meet God through nature, and that's my personal approach. What's frowned upon is wisdom by religion generally. Wisdom, education, as far as seeking anything beyond academics, is considered to be, even some people say it's satanic, or whatever particular belief they have. It basically makes it a dictatorship in my eyes. An angry, jealous, vengeful God who wants you to obey, wants you to worship, and doesn't want you to look at anything else. That is a dictator. And so it's always surprising to me when people don't see that. Often people will say that if folks don't find the religion, it's because they haven't asked to be saved, or haven't looked hard enough, or truly asked Jesus. Let's say, I'm using Jesus as the example. But if someone leaves the religion, it's because they lacked enough faith. And that's kind of a hypocrisy in itself. If you haven't found it, it's because you're not aware, but if you leave it, it's because you just didn't have enough faith. And my belief is that if you had faith at one time, the only thing that's going to lose that is through conscious thinking and realizing that God is bigger than religion. Now this one is, there's a separate lower and higher self, according to many religious people, and embracing that lower self. And this is one that really gets me, especially with Islam. Often people, they'll talk about how, material and things in this world don't matter. And Christians do the same thing. It's all about God, it's all about the afterlife. But then, what do they picture this afterlife being like? Pearly gates, the people you love, everything you'd possibly want, fine wines, whatever you want to do. Heaven has all these great things. Or you could have your 72 virgins. Basically, it's like the Egyptians packing all their stuff in their tombs with them to take it with them. A lot of people revere the Egyptians as having this, great wise religion. I laugh at them. I think, they forced their religion upon their people. They consistently changed gods, and you were having to either, believe what the Pharaoh told you to, or you're out. And it's funny to me to think about, everybody's so concerned about the spirit, but they want to take all these things with them. 72 virgins to me is just kind of laughable. That is very earthly attachment. To think that we're even going to be in this bodily form in some kind of heaven, to me, is earthly attachment. That's attachment to the body, to the self. So it's kind of a hypocrisy in itself. And that's the thing, ancient religions would change when things weren't looking good. If the old gods weren't doing well, we'd move to the new gods. And when the new gods didn't pay off, we'd go to a different god. Rather than blaming evil or something else for it, it would just be like, well, our god's not good enough. We must have to take another route. And that was understandable to the ancients because they didn't have the scientific knowledge that we do today to understand many of the events. So now science has been able to eliminate things we can't explain and leave the things that we can't in a circle that we can actually work on. And then another thing about the materialism is, when they talk about how, God doesn't want money, God doesn't care about materialism, but the church is out there forking over billions of dollars to build these giant chapels with all this fine marble. The Pope's all dressed up, the bishops are all dressed up, everybody's wearing fine robes and linens. And to me, that's a contradiction in itself. And so what it comes down is basically, religion tends to be scared of people learning. It doesn't promote exploration, and I think that any religion that's valid should urge its members to go out and seek and check out every other religion. Christianity does not do that. Going into any other book is considered, sin in many people's eyes, and to me, that's grasping at nothing. It's just, if you can't compare what you believe to other things, then how will you ever know how valid it really is? And alas, the devil is the scapegoat for everything bad that happens, all the problems. But God punishes us for our sins. And this is one that's always it's almost like teamwork, the whole devil-God thing, Sure, the devil causes problems, but if we buy into it, we're punished by God. That fellow who was the Muslim the other day, he was telling me that the tsunami that happened a few years back was because there were a bunch of Muslims over there who were having sex with prostitutes or non-Muslim women or something, and that God was punishing them for that. And then he went on to say how 9/11 was the Jews trying to keep us from finding our own true hearts. And I was just, it's sad to me that people really actually think that a tsunami is sent in to wipe out people because they are having sex. And so the last part I have here is nature. And this part's probably the deepest one. I've often discussed with people to say, hey, I've found my God through nature. When I go out into the woods and I go out into nature, it's a feeling of connection with God to me, whatever God is. And I don't use that word lightly. It's not something that I mean that there's a God watching down over me, not on the level that religions do, but rather that God permeates and is within and without everything. It's the electrical connection that connects everything in the universe. And I've been told by Christians before that, when I say that I've found this truth in nature, they'll say that that's not valid. The only way to find, to truly bond with God is through Jesus. And I can't seem to understand how a dead guy can be more valid than a live forest. Regardless of whether he was the Son of God or not, nature is God manifest. everything, the trees, the bees, everything works so perfectly. The deeper you look, the more complex it becomes, and the more amazing it becomes. And many people have discovered these truths about life by merely exposing themselves to nature. And when I say nature, of course, we get this visual of the woods or going out. We're in nature, everything about it. The nature of man, the nature of the beast, the nature of everything. And watching and observing people, watching and observing how they react to one another, especially watching how reasonable people react compared to those who are extremely dogmatic in science or those who are extremely dogmatic in religion. Those two people, those two groups, tend to be the most hostile, the most condescending, the most projecting groups of people that I've ever had the displeasure of, discussing issues with. Because the religious person will instantly diss science. Some people even go as far as to say it's evil, or it's, the devil, people making people do science. But the scientists will go as far as to say, there is absolutely nothing more to life than science. This is it. We can explain everything in the universe. And the arrogance on both sides, to me, is astounding. I truly think that there is something greater than us that is within and without everything. And it's something that we can't understand. A good example of it is like Helios, the god who had the shield of Helios. The ancients believed that Helios reflected the sun off of his shield, that we didn't directly see the sun. The sun was seen as a reflection through the shield, and the symbolism of that was the archetype of the greater God. It was interesting because it tied into a video I made the other day about the layers of God, and that was basically right in line with it. I was hearing Manly Hall was talking about it earlier on a video I was watching, and the symbols, the archetypes that we put out there have been moved from place to place. And most of us who have studied astrotheology know that Christianity was taken from ancient astrotheology. Sorry, it's ancient movements and celestial cycles, and it's a lot easier for people to take an anthropomorphic version of God, such as Jesus, or Krishna, or Buddha, or Allah, than it is for people to say God is a current of electricity or an invisible force. Because to try to understand that is complex. But nowadays, I think we're starting to actually be able to grasp that idea, that there are invisible forces. We understand radiation now. Radiation is a force that affects us, that we cannot see. And being close to that source of radiation can kill you. Similarly, God is probably some sort of a radiation, a frequency of its own. And something that is, I believe that all the bacteria and the cells within our body all have their own communities. And that the people make the communities on Earth. And all these as above, so below, all the different confusing archetypes of the past can be very easily assimilated and understood if we're just willing to look a little bit deeper than the surface. So that's all I've really got on that. I never get angry at people for being religious or pushing their religion, but it does get to a point where it's like, and walking away is generally the path I take. But sometimes you have to confront it and ask people why they think the things they do. And it is a fascinating revelation of how people think. So, hope everybody has a great day, and namaste, and I hope no offense was taken here by any religious people. It's just the way I see things. And that's being human.